Here at Weirder After Dark, we research and tell stories about all kinds of strange things that happen all over New England. Today, I want to tell you a story about something strange that happened to all of New England. Join us as we tell the true and terrifying story of the darkest day in the history of New England. This is a story about the day the sun refused to rise.
Welcome back to Weirder After Dark, the podcast. We get into all things New England weird. My name is Sean, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I am Chris.
And I'm Kathy.
It's so nice out today.
Oh,
The sun's out. It's beautiful. It's mid-May.
Yes.
We've been having those first beautiful, warm days of the year where you can't do anything but just like want to sneak outside with a beer in your hand and sit on a deck someplace. And the sun is shining all damn day. It's bright until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. I just love it.
Same. Oh, it is so nice. I love this time of year. I feel so full of energy. I'm just like, yes.
I tell you guys that because New England had its darkest day ever.
What?
In early May, the 19th to be exact. In 1780, it was said that day the sun refused to rise.
Literally, the sun did not rise.
Literally. I want to tell you that story.
Oh, I don't know. I kind
How
of
could
like
the
this.
sun not rise?
I'm in.
So I want to paint you a picture of the town of Northfield, New Hampshire in 1870. It was a small farming town. It had a lumber mill that had a water-powered wheel used to cut the wood. The town had a church, a one-room schoolhouse, a supply store that housed the post office, pharmacy, and town doctor's office as well. Electric lights had not been invented yet. Larger towns had oil-powered street lamps, but Northfield did not yet. The main source of light against the dark was candles. The town had 46 homes of families that often had grandparents, parents, and children all living under the same roof. The church doubled as a town hall and a courthouse as well. The mayor's office, town jail with its one cell, and tax collector's office was the other public use building in town and was housed in a renovated colonial-style home. Back then, everybody knew everybody in town. Northfield was an industrious town, hardworking, God-fearing people who looked out for their neighbors as they carved out their humble but personal piece of the new world. The week leading up to the darkest day in New England's history, the weather was unseasonably warm. This was a welcome change after a particularly harsh winter. In fact, the winter of 1780 was one of the snowiest and coldest on record. If you remember from history, General Washington lost many soldiers that winter in Valley Forge. Townspeople had observed an odd pinkish hue to the sun all week long. This had caused some speculation and maybe even some fear from the town's more religious folks, who read into this as a sign of the end times foretold in the Bible. Most saw it as odd, but an unalarming sight. Judge Samuel Philip Savage of Western Massachusetts, who we rely on for his first-hand accounts as he recorded in his diary throughout this day, remarked, "A remarkable thick air had been evident for several days now. The sun rised and set very red." He also noted that the week leading up to the 19th, the moon too blushed a strange hue of pink.
I'm thinking that there's a fire.
That's where my mind went to, though, Kathy. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, is it like big forest fires, smoke in the air,
Yeah.
changing it? A pink hue would make me weird, too, though. If
Yeah.
I knew nothing, that'd be
Yeah.
spooky.
That's,
The sun changes colors. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. It's weird.
So on the 18th, the day before the darkest day in New England history, some fishermen out of Gloucester, Massachusetts refused to go out to sea due to believing the pink hue in the sun to be a bad omen.
Well, they do say like pink in morning, sailors take warning. Or like
Pink at night,
pink at
sailors
night,
delight.
sailors
Yeah.
delight.
The owners of the boat, thinking the sailors were lazy or rather get drunk all day, pushed back. But without skilled crew, only about half the boats left the dock that day to go fishing.
So they were like genuinely concerned about something, or
Yeah.
at least taking the superstition real.
Yeah, half the people didn't want to go out. They were fearful.
I just imagine the owners be like, stupid drunks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get on your ships.
You lazy assholes. Get on the boat. Go make me money.
So scholars at Harvard University pondered the reason for the change in the color of the sun and searched for atmospheric or celestial reasons for the oddity they witnessed. They theorized that Venus's position in retrograde could affect the colors they saw in the sun that week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I'm moody this week.
Friday morning of the 19th, the people of Northfield were aware of the change from pink to reddish hue in the sun and a pale yellow tint to the sky. That morning, the sun was more of a red than pink. This somehow seemed more ominous.
Almost
Oh.
like it's getting worse.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that.
However, town folks started the day much like any other day with chores and quickly busied themselves, the men tending to the fields and livestock or off to the sawmill. Women had water to fetch from the town well, clothing that need to be washed, and beds and meals need to be prepared.
Honestly, though, like, what do you do, right? Like, you go out, you take a look up at the sun, you're like, red today.
Yeah, looks weird.
All right, laundry's still got to get done. Yeah, like,
Still got to go tend to the animals.
yeah, spooky, though.
So on the morning of the 19th, only a few boats in Gloucester left the docks that morning, as rumors of dark omens circulated among the fishermen in their community. The red sun that morning was enough to spook most of the hardened sailors and deckhands into staying home that day. Only a few brave or desperate souls left port that morning.
Sounds scary.
More from Savage's diary. Savage noted that shortly after 9:00 a.m., there came an appearance over the whole visible heaven, a light brassy hue, nearly the color of pale cider. He continued, the sky was soon attended with a gloom nearly resembling that of an eclipse of the sun.
Okay.
So as 9 a.m., it's getting a little darker.
So it's getting darker as the morning's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is the exact opposite of what you expect, right?
And it's not a, solar eclipse?
It sounds like he called it a solar eclipse. That tells me that the writer knows what an eclipse is and has experienced it likely before.
As of 9 a.m., chores started to take a back seat in the town of Northfield, as the town people started to ponder and question each other about the red sun and the dull yellow hue in the sky. They gossiped and guessed as to its meaning or its biblical significance of the strange skies. Some saw it as a miracle. Others saw it as an omen of the Bible's warning of the rapture or judgment day. Some returned home to be with their families, while others went to church to pray for salvation and guidance. Most looked to the skies in fear and awe. A young mother in town whose newborn son was scheduled for a baptism on Saturday hurried to the church and begged the priest to complete the ceremony early. Due to fear, the reddish sun was a sign of Judgment Day, and her unbaptized baby would not be allowed in heaven. The priest reassured the young panicky mother, but also questioned if this was Judgment Day for himself, so performed the baptism and rites with haste.
Well, that was nice of him.
Yeah, they're getting a little freaked out.
Yeah.
I would be too, though. Like, no context. There's no news. You have no what or why it's happening. You just wake up one day, things are different.
And remember, these people were in church a lot. They believed in the Bible.
Yeah. I don't know. So if you thought the rapture was about to come, what are you doing? You getting your sinning done because you don't know what's coming next? So like, I don't know where I'd be.
I'm confessing all of my sins. I need like good 12 hours with the priest.
What have you done?
We're not talking about it.
Nope.
You're not a priest.
And this is not the end of days. So.
Yeah.
Now, as this Friday morning progressed, an eerie transformation was underway. Instead of getting lighter as the sun climbed to the sky, it was getting darker, and the sun seemed to be disappearing from the sky. Savage continues in his diary. By 10 o'clock, the sun had almost entirely disappeared, and the skies grew rapidly dark. The songbirds that cheered the day only hours before now fell silent. Fowl returned to their roosts or collected together in clusters, while nightcocks crowed and crickets shook their fiddles. It was as if night was falling.
Ooh, this is so weird. Last year we had the solar eclipse, the full solar eclipse.
Yes.
Where we were actually in the path of it. It did have some of these same vibes. Like, it was only a couple minutes, but the whole lighting shifted. Things got really dark and eerie. Like, you could definitely hear also the crickets came out and you're like, it's not nighttime. That's not supposed to be happening right now. This is super strange. But I don't know. It doesn't sound exactly like this.
It's interesting because when we get into some of the theories about this, you guys have hit on 3 of them already.
We're smart.
Yes, you are. The Connecticut legislature, which was in session the morning of the 19th, was struggling to get any work done due to delegates and staffers periodically checking the windows to monitor the strange, ominous skies. At this point, nearly dark out, the most industrious of the Northfield people had stopped working. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't see well enough to work the fields anymore. An even larger crowd started to gather in the town's church. People started desperately repenting and confessing their sins in a panic to prepare their souls for the end of times. The priest, who had been warning the townspeople of Judgment Day for some time now, was in full action, making sure his flock souls were ready for Judgment Day and entry into heaven.
So they're in. They truly think this is like the end of times.
Oh, they're panicking at this point.
Wow.
By 11 a.m. that morning, the Connecticut legislature had already adjourned, sending its delegates home to join their families as they too were in fear of the rapture. The other members of the legislature pled with Senator Abram Davenport to follow suit. Senator Davenport would have none of this. He declared, the day of judgment is either approaching or it is not. If it is not, there is no cause for an adjournment. If it is, I choose to be found doing my duties. I wish, therefore, that candles may be brought.
Honestly, I respect that.
Yeah,
though.
he's pretty badass.
Yeah, I respect the shit out of that. He's just like, if it's happening, it's happening. Let's work, baby. We got stuff to do. As an atheist, someone who doesn't believe, like, no judgment for anyone who does. This is just crazy in my mind. And I know I'm coming into this world with a completely different set of understanding and experiences than the people at this time. But it's crazy for me to be like, oh, the sun's slightly different color. It's the end of times. Panic. like, oh, that's so weird. It's weird to think that.
And I don't think that I would be running to my priest. I'm an atheist too, so I don't have a priest, but I don't think I would be trying to find my God in that moment.
Well, I don't know. Like, people do, when they're desperate and they do believe the end's coming, like, maybe all of a sudden you become a little bit more of a believer in those moments, right? Like, maybe. Hey, just in case God is real, let me go do X, Y,
well,
Z.
I like to think that if there is a God, that as long as I've been a good person, God would accept me into his kingdom.
If the USA has taught me anything, God's a capitalist and you're fucked.
I'm fucked.
So Savage continues in his diary. The noonday meals were served by candlelight, if served at all. By 12 noon, the few Gloucester fishermen that did go out to sea that day quickly and cautiously returned, because of fear, but also because it was too dark to safely navigate the rocky shores and rock outcrops in the harbor. Some went straight to church, others went straight to the pub.
So as it's getting dark, are they able to see the stars?
No.
Is there any reference? So there's
no stars, no moonlight.
Okay.
So Savage records in his journal, as of 1 p.m., New Englanders put down their tools and books and looked to the sky in fear and wonderment. This was no coming thunderstorm, no horrid pile of clouds. A great and terrible shadow was coming over the land, and soon everything bore the appearance of gloom of night. By 1 p.m., the town people of Northfield were almost all gathered in the church. Some people had let their livestock out of the pens so they could find a safe place to ride out the rapture and possibly be spared. Church elders reassured the masses of the glory of heaven. Some wanted to flee to the woods. Others cried out in despair. Most prayed for their souls. The priest was frantically running around and taking confessions, giving out last rites, and assigning prayers for divine forgiveness, in full preparation for the coming rapture. After all, this is what the priest had been preparing for himself for his entire life. And now this moment, his efforts and trainings and prayers would come to fruition. By 2 p.m., Savage writes, "This brief day ends. And now the birds of night were abroad." He airily added, "I'm going to turn in for the night, and God willing, I will revisit you in the light of day."
So he really thought he was going to go to bed and he wasn't going to wake up.
At 2 in the afternoon?
He was worried. He's going to bed. It's like, fuck it, I'm going to bed.
Can't do anything else.
So the Harvard intellectuals pondered the theory that the Earth's rotation must have suddenly sped up, and they calculated that the sun should rise again at 4 p.m. When it didn't, they ran back to the chalkboards to rework their calculations. By 4 p.m., the Connecticut legislature was completely empty, except one lone delegate, Senator Abram Davenport, who sat at his desk and indignantly worked away by candlelight.
He's like, bitches.
Yeah.
Get back to work.
I'm staying here.
When it's all over, he's like, who's laughing now?
Yeah, he's like, shift ends at 5.
By 4 p.m., many folks in Northfield, frightened and exhausted from the panic, decided to sleep at the church until the rapture or sunlight appeared. Others spent their time in deep prayer. Still others comforted the children and distracted them with games and stories. It is unclear if the children or the adults needed the distraction more. In Salem, Massachusetts, lawyer William Pynchon wrote in his journal, "While the good people of Salem scurried around, seized with melancholy and fear, sailors alone seemed unfazed by the closing gloom. Instead, they went frolicking through the streets, gaily calling upon all to join their last romp. They cried out to the ladies of the night while they passed, 'Now you may take off your rolls and high caps and be damned.'" By 5 p.m., across New England, the dark started to lift slightly. The skies brightened a touch, not returning to normal 5 p.m. brightness, but it was a little bit brighter than it was at noon that day. The people of Northfield cautiously pondered if the rapture was not coming, wondering if God had been testing them, and sheepishly asked the question if their piety and prayer they had passed God's test. Senator Abram Davenport, at 5 p.m. sharp, finished his day at work and left his office for home as he did every other day, to dinner and a bath and some light reading before he retired for the night. He was having none of it.
Good for him. He's a badass. I like him.
The Harvard intellectuals, now seeing the skies brighten, started to believe the Earth's rotation was speeding up and slowing down at random, and pondered the consequences of this new norm of this unpredictable day-night schedule. If the day of the 19th was frightening, the night of the 19th was terrifying.
Wait, what? What's going to happen? Oh my God.
Does it make it darker? Because now it's dark.
Ooh, it gets dark.
It gets dark.
So dark.
So dark.
By 7 p.m., Experience Richardson, yes, that's his first name, Experience Richardson of Sudbury, Massachusetts, recorded in his journal, "It was so terribly dark that we could not see our hand before us." Samuel Tenney of Connecticut suggested that the inky black was probably as gross as it had ever been observed since the Almighty Father gave birth to light. Even a sheet of paper held a few inches from the eyes was as black as velvet.
What's the inky black?
Inky black is just a dark black, right?
Okay, so it's like a name for a color? Or...
He's describing how dark it was.
Yeah.
Got it. It's like ink, like the ink is black. Got it.
A correspondent to the Boston newspaper called the Massachusetts Spy wrote of that night. When the moon finally rose at 3 minutes past 9 o'clock in Boston, it was not white or silver, nor even pink as it had been for several evenings now, but blood red.
The moon?
The moon was nearly full, yet its ruddy light was soon extinguished by the pale of gloom. Now a truly terrible blackness descended on the land, a kind of Egyptian blackness.
Ooh, this is weird. Now I'm going back more towards like smoke in the sky, like causing this. Oh, this is like weird.
So yeah, if you're wondering, the Egyptian darkness is a nod to the Bible story about Moses and the Exodus 10:21, when God released 7 plagues on the Egyptians. All New Englanders settled in for the darkest and most likely the most unsettling night in recorded history. Many continued to pray, others drank until they forgot their fears. Still others came to terms with the end of days, went to bed reassured by their righteousness and their religious right in the kingdom of God. John Greenleaf, a Massachusetts poet and author, wrote this of the day. "Ye sons of light who saw the night triumphing at high noon, this 19th day of the month of May, mark well the dismal gloom." The next morning, as New England woke up on May the 20th, people from Maine to Connecticut looked to the skies in fear. The day had started the exact same way. A red hue to the sun, a yellow tint to the sky, all awaited the return of the oppressive dark. New England held its collective breath. As the day progressed, the strange yellow haze continued. But night didn't come until a little after 6 p.m., as we would expect in May in New England. The haze remained for several weeks, but dissipated over time. And the darkest day in New England history was over. So what caused the darkest day in New England history? You guys have already started to give me some possibilities. They're all really good ones. But I want to get into some of the thoughts about it.
Let's hear it.
Religious beliefs were a large part of New England culture in the late 1700s. Scriptures in the Bible like, "The sun shall turn into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day the Lord comes," from the book of Joel 2:31. And "The sun became black, the whole moon became as blood, the stars fell from the sky to earth," Revelations 6:12 and 6:13, led people to think the apocalypse had actually arrived. Remember that the American colonies were originally populated, for most part, by people looking for religious freedom from the Catholic Church of England. At this time in history, religion was a major part of people's life, and it was not uncommon for people to spend Saturday and all of Sunday in church. Scripture was read at the dinner table, and prayers were a regular part of many people's lives in New England back then.
I could never have survived back then.
Nope.
No offense to people who are religious.
Well, being very familiar and believing in the book of Revelations, that includes the story of Judgment Day, many saw this as a test from God, and they had passed. Some believed that Judgment Day had come and gone, and God was a merciful God and spared believer and sinner alike.
I was going to say, what about the boats people partying in the streets?
Yeah,
they got spared too.
They got spared. Merciful God. Okay, thank you. The Harvard professors quickly discarded the idea that the Earth's rotation or speed was unstable. In days after the New England's darkest day, they reported to the Boston and Hartford newspaper that Venus had moved in front of the sun and it blocked the light. They calculated this will happen again in the year 2045. Of course, the field of astrophysics has learned more about the movement of the planets over the years and has ruled this out as a possibility.
All right, so it wasn't Venus.
Nope.
It clearly wasn't a solar eclipse because we've experienced that.
So over the years, a variety of more logical theories were proposed to explain the darkest day. Explanations range from a solar eclipse, thunderstorm, volcanic eruption, fire, or a meteor impact.
Thunderstorm, really?
Yeah.
Come on. Whoever put that theory out, come on.
As time passed, many of these theories were discarded. Astronomical data confirmed that there was not a solar eclipse during that period. Not to mention, a solar eclipse in its entirety only lasts a few minutes, as you were saying, not an entire day. Furthermore, New England had experienced a solar eclipse in 1778, just 2 years prior to the darkest day. So they would have recognized one if they had seen one.
Yeah, they even wrote about it, right? He was referring to eclipses in his writing.
Yeah, so he knew what it was supposed to look like.
Yeah, so I think we're pretty safe in ruling out a solar eclipse. Historical documents ruled out thunderstorms. No significant rain fell around New England that day. Also, New Englanders were no strangers to thunderstorms, and they'd be able to identify the difference between a thunderstorm and night starting at 11 o'clock in the morning. So
I was going to say hot take, common sense rules out thunderstorms.
That's the stupidest theory.
A volcano could create a cloud that blocked out the sun entirely for a day or even longer.
But we don't have any volcanoes near us.
It doesn't have to be near us.
It doesn't have to be near us, right?
How close does it have to be?
It could be anywhere on the earth, actually. Yeah, let me get into some of the science. Okay. So I'm going to nerd out here for a minute. It is possible that there was an eruption, possibly in Iceland. Has several active volcanoes and is fairly close to New England. When an eruption of significant size occurs, a very fine dust cloud is shot into the upper atmosphere, and the high winds in the upper atmosphere can keep the dust afloat for weeks, if not months, before returning to Earth. This could block out the sun and make day look like night. It could also account for the strange pink hue to the moon and sun the week following up to the darkest day. Light particles filtered through dust can change the color and refraction, causing the color to change from blue sky to yellow.
Yeah. There was in Europe, I don't remember the dates, but there was a volcanic eruption and it killed the majority of the crops for an entire growing season because it blocked that much sunlight for a long period of time.
So good news, we were able to take core samples from this polar ice sheets and find these dust particles and accurately date historical volcanic eruptions. Dust falls on the Arctic and Antarctic plains, and because it hardly ever melts, new snow falls and freezes over, creating a timeline captured in the ice that we can read like a history book of what was in our atmosphere at any given time. As it turns out, no volcanic dust was found in the ice cores from 1780 in the Arctic or Antarctic records.
So not a volcano.
Making this theory less plausible.
Damn. Okay, well, there goes that lead.
Meteorite exploding in the Earth's atmosphere could create enough dust to block out the sun for an entire day, but it would also make an audible sonic boom. A meteor can hit our atmosphere at 10 times the speed of sound, meaning 10 seconds after the explosion, most of New England should have been able to hear a sonic boom. No record of this sonic boom has ever been found. Think of a jet that breaks the sound barrier, and then a couple seconds later you hear the sonic boom of the jet passing. It would be like that, but much, much louder. Also, a meteor explosion, while it could explain the darkest day, does not account for the strange pinkish hue of the sun and moon for the week leading up to the darkest day.
So what are we left with then? Fires?
Yeah, that was my guess, was that there was like...
That was your guess?
Yeah, that there was some like massive fire somewhere.
So over 200 years after the darkest day, scientists think they may have honed in on an answer. In 2008, the University of Missouri looked at 10 tree rings from Ontario, Canada, and found evidence of wildfires in 1780.
Oh, that's what it was. I was right. Yay.
Yeah, so every ring in a cross-cut section of a tree represents 1 year of growth. They can see the rings of the trees have something called fire scars. In counting the tree rings backwards in time, they can see these scars occurred on multiple trees in Ontario in the year 1780.
There was probably Europeans in Quebec area and stuff like that too at that time, right? Is there any records from any of that?
So I didn't find any records of that, but I did find some other records that might corroborate it. So atmospheric scientists suggest that wildfires can cause thick smoke columns that reach the upper atmospheres and can alter atmospheric conditions over vast distances. And this could give the appearance of yellow tint to the sky and a pinkish hue, or even red hue to the sun and moon. The smoke could also get so heavy in theory that it blocked all light from the sun and moon for an entire day.
That's intense.
Further proof of this theory comes from a journal entry of a man from Maine in 1780 who lived near the Canadian border. He wrote on May 18th, 1780, the day before New England's darkest day, he had to shovel ash off his roof for several days in fear a hot amber could catch his house on fire. This first-hand account furthers the theory of the Canadian wildfires. This theory is further reinforced by Boston's Jeremy Belknap, who mentioned in his 1780 letter to Ebenezer Hazard, fucking awesome name, by the way.
So cool.
In the letter, he wrote, the air bore a smell of a malt house or coal kiln, and that bodies of water seemed to be covered with soot and were unusually dark that day.
Okay.
So New England's darkest day is still unsolved, but evidence as of today is heavily favoring Canadian wildfires. Now, today, with electric lights and our understanding of atmospheric science and our ability to track wildfires, this would be a minor inconvenience. But you guys can imagine why in the 1780s, New Englanders might have viewed this as the end of the world. So this was a really interesting story that I had never heard before that I wanted to share with you guys.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this story before either. My first guess was fires. That's because I know things now that the people during the 1700s, they didn't have access to information that we have today.
Yeah, they only knew what was going on in their small little realm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that must have been terrifying for them to have to go through and experience.
Yeah. Like, thank you for you kind of teleported us back there with those journal entries and stuff and really brought to life the pure panic that it sounds like the majority of individuals are having and preparing for that rapture. And it really makes us in a way kind of how much we take for granted. There's some bad things that come with how connected we are to everything, but there are some amazing things too, right? Think last year in New England, we had those crazy smoke coming down from some of the fires. I remember going out for runs and having difficulty breathing. If I didn't know what that was, what would I, how would I have just figured it out?
What would you have thought?
Yeah. So it is crazy. Well, Chris, thanks for that story. That was crazy. When you first started writing it or researching it, what were you thinking? Did you have a feeling it was going to end like forest fires or something like that? Or?
My first guess was a volcano, but yeah, forest fires was my second guess.
How'd you find it?
I Googled weird shit that happened in New England.
Boom. There it is. Hey,
that was one of them.
Don't give people a recipe for success here. Oh, that's so good. All right. Well, hey, Chris, thank you so much for sharing this story. It was something I've never heard either, and it was illuminating. Thank you.
Ooh,
the opposite.
Yeah. And gang, if you enjoyed this tale here from Chris here today, feel free to swing by our Instagram where we're going to go ahead and we'll drop some documentation and images that are going to support Chris's story on the darkest day in New England. And I also want to let you all know that we're not just on the Instagram. That's right. We're building communities elsewhere. So if you're on Facebook, if you find yourself on the Reddit, check us out at Weirder After Dark, and you can come talk to us and to other members like you who love our show. And I want to give you a quick reminder too, if you like this shit, and if you love this shit, don't just visit our communities, but make sure you share this shit with one of your friends, and it would mean the world to us if you did that. And lastly, before we call it a day, I just want to let you know that we are always on the lookout for any of your strange tales, stories, experiences in New England, outside of New England, wherever it may be. If you have had some strange stuff happen, you can feel free to send that to us at thegang@weirderafterdark.com, and we will share your tale in an upcoming Whispers After Dark 2 Tales and a Lie episode. And with that, remember, it always gets a little weirder after dark.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.